Hi, so welcome to our first Meet Us Monday. We're your 4 Cornwall Council candidates for Labour for Falmouth, and we thought it'd be a nice idea to introduce ourselves so you can get to know us a little bit more and to listen to us having a conversation about some of the stuff that we care about in the lovely town we live in. So I'm just going to pass over to Laurie initially for him to do a quick introduction as to who he is and what his background is.
Hello, I'm Laurie McGowan and I'm standing in the Arwennick ward of Falmouth. I actually live in Boslowick, so just up the hill, but I'm really pleased to be representing Labour in the upcoming elections. This is my first foray into local politics, so it's all very new and interesting, but delighted to be working with 3 wonderful colleagues. Really looking forward to contributing and getting involved in discussions about how we can improve the life in Falmouth and get more community involvement in our local politics.
Amazing, excellent. We'll go down to Sinead now because she's down my bottom left.
Hi, I'm Sinead. I'm standing in Falmouth Boslowick. I actually live in Penryn. My background is working for charities mainly, but I've now got a vintage lighting shop. So I'm very interested in helping small businesses. And that's it really. I'll hand over to Jane.
Hi, I'm Jane Kirkham. I'm currently the Cornwall Councillor for Falmouth Smithick. Unfortunately, Smithick's being rent in half, and half of it's going up to Penwerris, and most of the rest of it is going down to Arwennick. So I'm going to stand in Penwerris this time, which takes in the whole of the old Penwerris ward as well as half of my Smithick ward. I'm an ex-teaching assistant and an ex-lawyer. I've been in politics 3 or 4 years. I stood for Parliament in 2017, which was a whirlwind, and I've been lucky enough to be the Cornwall Councillor for Falmouth Smithick for 3 years now. And I've started a lot of things, and there's a lot of things I care about, and I'm chairing the place shaping committee in Falmouth. So I want the chance to carry on with some of the stuff I'm doing and see it through.
Fantastic. So I'm finally Kirsty Edwards. So also my first foray into local politics, slightly terrified, not going to lie, kind of winging it out also, which people should know we kind of are a little bit. We're doing our best to learn on the ground. I really care about Falmouth. I've lived here for 25 years, lived in Cornwall before, but moved to Falmouth as a student. Stayed to raise my family, done all sorts of different jobs over the years, from working in sort of restaurants and chefing and stuff to training as a teacher. Now I run a small business and I do a lot of work on the environment with things like Plastic Free Falmouth. I've become a lot more involved in local politics more recently, I guess, because of the environmental work I do, realising that we have to have policy change actually to do a lot of the things we want to do locally and nationally. So I've been fortunate enough to be in chambers a lot and talking to a lot of officers and councillors about some of the things that need to happen. And I realised that actually, to actually do more of the good stuff that I've been doing, I need to actually put my money where my mouth is and stand and try and get myself a role which allows me to do a little bit more than I can currently. So that's where I'm at. I'm not going to lie, I'm pretty terrified about the whole thing. How I guess Jane's a dab hand at this, having done it for 3 years, but are you two, Laurie and Sinead, are you both a little bit fearful of this whole experience? Because I am a bit.
Well, yeah, I mean, like you two, it's my first time. I think someone expressed that like they were fed up with shouting at the telly and they decided to get involved themselves. And that's very much how I feel. I've just spent a long time getting involved in things like setting up community centres and after-school cafes. And really, there's a lot you can do outside of being on the council. But I think the time, certainly came a time in my life where I just thought, well, I have to put my money where my mouth is and really stand with council. So, and really stand up for the issues that I'm passionate about. How about you, Laurie? But I am a bit scared. Like you said, it's the whole politics thing is pretty new to me. And I've always been interested in it, but actually standing as a candidate and putting yourself out there is something that, yeah, is mildly terrifying. Yeah. How about you, Laurie?
Yeah, similar really. I'm putting one foot in front of the other and seeing where I end up. Always been really interested in I guess national and international politics, and always keen to throw my 2 pence worth in, be it down the pub with mates and putting my views across and sharing ideas, which is what I really enjoy. I think local politics sometimes just falls to the bottom of the pile, or people aren't aware of it so much in terms of what Cornwall Council, unitary authorities and town councils and parish councils, what they do, what they're involved in, how decisions are made, who represents them. So I think a key thing for me is making people more aware of that. Hopefully getting more younger people involved in local politics, because I think there's an absence really of representation from local people, first-time voters. I understand there's a lot of frustration and apathy in politics in general. So yeah, if we can raise awareness through normal conversations with normal people living normal lives, but really sort of champion the areas that we're interested in and bring people along with us. And obviously for Falmouth, that's a real great mix of people. That's people who have lived there all their lives. It's people who have retired here, such a number of students, young families. So, you know, it's a whole breadth of people. And I think if we can engage people in issues that matter to them, that we want to champion and represent them at a local authority level, then you know, hopefully that's my aim and something we can do really positively.
Yeah, I think that's something that Jane's done really well. I was going to ask Jane to come in.
I wanted to give an example, really, because yes, outside pressure groups and the stuff that Kirsty has done with Plastic Free Falmouth can be really, really influential and can push the councils, both unitary and town councils, into doing things they wouldn't consider doing. But of course, as Kirsty said, then you are providing the push, but you're not the one making the decision. Now, if you care about this stuff and you're on the council, you make the decision. So an example that I'd use is the build-up about the climate emergency declaration that happened a couple of years ago. Now, Kirsty did a lot of work on Plastic Free Falmouth. There are a lot of groups who were very, very involved in pushing for a climate emergency declaration and an earlier date to become carbon neutral than the kind of vague 2050 rubbish that the government's coming up with. Yeah. So that built up to a crescendo to the point where I put an amendment to a Lib Dem climate report motion, and we actually got through by one vote an amendment to call a climate emergency declaration and to stick that 2030 target in. And that was massive. We were the first big rural authority to do that in this country. And we followed just a few other big local authorities, generally cities, who find it a lot easier because they have a lot better transport, etc., to make those kind of commitments. Yeah. So you kind of need everyone. You need the people pushing, but you also need the people who care about this stuff on those positions in those council, in those local government organisations to kind of just give it that final shove and make it happen.
Yeah, and I guess
a key aspect now.
Carry on, Laurie.
Sorry, after you, Kirsty.
I was going to say, I guess a key element then is looking at how everybody interacts with one another, isn't it? So your councillors need to be working with community groups and individuals and looking almost for a lead sometimes from what is happening in the community, because community groups give up so much of their time voluntarily to really push for things that they really care about. So having those really good relationships, and from my point of view, and this isn't to dismiss any other people that operate and are currently elected at all, but I didn't really know who any of the Cornwall councillors were other than Jane, because Jane actually made the effort to get involved with the stuff we were doing, got to know us all, really actively cared and pushed some of the stuff, and was really super helpful. And I think that's what Cornwall Council should do. They should be really accessible, because ultimately we're representing the people in our wards, right?
You are effectively a bridge. I see it as a bridge between local government and council, because a lot of people don't know all the stuff the council does, and it's a unitary. It's got a £1.1 billion budget. It does so much, and it can do so much for Cornwall. So we should be that bridge between the residents who live here and the council, both ways. Yeah, pushing what people want done to the council, and then getting out what the council are doing to people, so people can present their opinion on it. And if they don't like it, we can try and change it. So. Yeah,
absolutely. So, Laura, what were you going to say? Sorry.
Well, just in terms of the climate emergency stuff, I think hopefully the next stage of this is making sure that the local authority and businesses and everybody follows through on what's been put down on paper and committed, because it sounded like it was a challenge to get it through, but now is when the hard work starts, isn't it? And it's about writing environmental impact and environmental concern through everything that the local authority does. And I think the number of councillors going from 123 down to 80 or so, I think maybe a positive thing, in that, there's fewer people making decisions. People can't hide. Each council in theory has more responsibility because they're representing a larger group of people. And I think that's just going to be really important, that the public and locally elected people hold the council to account, to make sure that we do deliver on, if elected, on what's been requested, which is absolutely the critical stuff around protecting the environment, helping businesses grow and develop, so reducing inequality, supporting families, and all that core Labour value stuff that we all stand for.
What do you think about that, Sinead?
Yeah, well, I think increasingly people are just very disillusioned with politicians and politics, and because people see there are several other routes they could take, whether that's direct action or pressure groups. But I still think, as you touched on, people don't really know what their council does, or the amount of times I've said to someone when they've come to me with a problem, have you contacted your local councillor? And they go, well, I don't know who it is, or would the councillor help me with that? And sometimes they don't know that your MP can help with things. So I think it's really highlighting to people exactly what these paid officials are there to do and to help you to do, and to encourage them to contact their local councillor if they have a problem. So I think it's kind of making people aware of that in this very disillusioned age we live in. I think politicians are number one on the least trusted and respected professions these days. I think just above journalists, which is very strange. I mean, I'm very passionate about local media as well. I'm a bit obsessed with local newspapers, and I think they can be such a force for good. It'd be good to work with them more.
I think the diversity thing. Oh, no, carry on, Jane.
And the local media is pretty good here, to be honest. The Falmouth Packet are pretty good, the West Britain are pretty good, and they pick up a lot of the stuff that we're doing. Just to give an example, Sinead's right. I sometimes think that people councillors don't approach me because they think I can't do anything, or they don't really know, what the council can do. But there is stuff. When I first became a councillor, I dealt with a massive it's housing issues. People were losing their housing, they didn't know where to go, and I have access to Cornwall housing officers. The Nostakerno was set up so that anyone within 56 days of losing their accommodation does get some help, does get some assistance. People don't know that, and so you can put people in touch with things and people, and you can actually make stuff happen, or at least make stuff happen a bit quicker than it otherwise would. So it really is worth contacting your councillor, and we can help, and it's more kind of knowing where to go as well and who to get hold of, because a lot of times people can't get through that brick wall of the call centre, that they don't know where to go, and we can do that. We can get through that and push it aside and actually get people who can make stuff happen.
Absolutely. And I mean, Cornwall Council's website has got an awful lot of information on it, but it's also got an awful lot of information on it. So it's actually really hard sometimes to find exactly what it is you need to talk to, and you go around the houses. So, and I think also I was going to say about the diversity thing that I think, and again, it's not to be disparaging of any other members, because I know everybody works very hard, but I think Jane being quite accessible and in a slightly different demographic, I mean, from my understanding, I think the ratio of men to women is pretty poor. How many women are there on Cornwall Council at the moment?
There are, I think, 31, 30, I think, out of 123.
123.
Yeah.
That gender bias is not ideal, and then I wouldn't like to guess at the age ratio, but I suspect that it's probably
41 councillors over the age of 70. So that's more councillors over the age of 70 than there are women of any age.
Yeah, and I think personally, again, as a woman, it's International Women's Day today, coincidentally, but as a woman and as a mum and stuff, sometimes it's easier to approach somebody who is in your demographic, maybe. I guess, like, if you've got a problem with a school or whatever it might be, access into schools, or I don't know, stuff like the play park, for example, you're more likely to care about that if you've got children yourself and not likely to use it. For example, we've been involved with the local play park here. I'm up on the Beacon, and obviously it's on your doorstep. You use it all the time, therefore you're going to be pretty actively engaged in trying to sort it out, right? Because it's right there. And that's not to say you're not capable. Of course, grandparents and stuff care about all those things and all the rest of it. But I wonder if it's a little bit easier for some people to go, actually, she's a bit more like me, he's a bit more like me, maybe I could have a chat, rather than phoning somebody or contacting somebody that seems so different from you that it's quite hard to access. I don't know, maybe that's right, maybe that's wrong.
The council should look like the people it represents, really.
Yeah, it should be a mixture of everyone.
It doesn't, yeah, and if it doesn't, then it should more, and we should work to make it look more like the people it represents. And in Cornwall there are, roughly half women. And in Cornwall there are people of all different ages, so that's what we should have on the council. I mean, because people need to be on the council and understand all those issues, don't they?
There is, I think Labour have got one of the youngest ever candidates standing, haven't they, for Young Labour over, where's he?
I think Louis is, I don't know if he's 18, but he's certainly much younger than me.
Yeah, I mean, wouldn't it be amazing to get sort of people in their 20s involved in a local level on in local government, because that's another voice that's massively underrepresented. You know, I've got children from all ages, from 22 down to 8, and definitely my sort of high teens, low 20s. You know, there's a lot of challenges for them at the moment, and they are kind of off the radar, I think, for a lot of people, because everyone thinks, oh, they're too busy partying to care. They're really not. They care about some really big issues, actually, our young people, and having a voice, via whether it's via a parental type or, you know, your friend's mum or whatever, you know, that's important too for them.
You remember the climate emergency declaration? Yeah. Do you remember the school strikes and the kids outside? Massive influence, brilliant, really cared. It really helped.
Yeah, absolutely.
Definitely. I say this recognizing that I'm fast approaching the demographic that we're talking about. I mean, I'm a white middle class male. The only thing, you know, is I perhaps have less hair follicles than most people, but that's about it. So I do acknowledge my position in this, and I think maybe in a way that's part of the reason I'm wanting to get involved now. In that, you know, I'm old enough to have had a reasonable number of experiences, but, you know, still feel young and energetic and enthusiastic to do something about it. But in terms of, you know, the demographics of Cornwall, we talked about, you know, increased number of student population, but just, you know, younger families as well. And the ideas that they will have in terms of what Falmouth will be like in the next 5, 10, 15, 35 years. You know, it's about identifying and amplifying some of those great ideas that people will have and putting those forwards. And that obviously links in with like digital technologies and transformation, and identifying some of the inequalities around digital engagement as well that, you know, people have across Falmouth. So tapping into the full range of the community to help share and talk about different ideas for how we can make it a better place to live. Really important, I think. Yeah,
definitely. Well, I think probably that's a natural place for us to pause, isn't it? But we're looking to try and do this each week, and it would be great if anybody in Falmouth or across the area has got any questions for us, because obviously some of our boundary margins do stretch beyond Falmouth, the town, particularly mine. Really long way. I looked at the map the other day, it goes a really long way out. But so it'd be lovely to have some actual questions and things you'd like us to talk about, so you can find out what we think about it and what our solutions could potentially be. We're very lucky to have Jane's experience to guide all of us. I think probably speak for the rest of us, really, that I'm so grateful for Jane right now, because she's kind of very much showing us the ropes and helping us understand exactly what can be achieved. And we come to her and go, I've got this massive plan of what I want to choose. That actually we don't control the schools. That's a national government thing, people. So it's definitely really helpful. So anything that you guys would like us to talk about or find out about and discuss, then let us know. But for now, I guess it's going to be goodbye for this Monday. And yeah, everyone say goodbye.
Bye.
Bye, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, and we'll see you next week.